The whiskey glass hit the table so hard I thought it might shatter. My father's voice cut through the laughter at our family dinner like a blade. "Let's be honest. Harper doesn't have what it takes. Liam's the real successor here." My brother's smirk stretched across his face. My mother looked down at her plate, suddenly fascinated by her salmon. The room went quiet except for the sound of my heart pounding in my ears. I forced my lips into something resembling a smile, but my hand shook as I reached for my water glass. Everyone saw it. That tiny tremor that betrayed everything I was trying to hide. My father noticed too. His eyes locked on my trembling fingers for just a moment before he turned back to Liam, clapping him on the shoulder. I sat there, frozen in that moment, my face calm but my mind screaming. Something inside me shifted that night, something permanent. I didn't know it yet, but that dinner would be the last time I let Charles Reed make me feel small. My name is Harper Reed, and I've spent most of my life being invisible. Not the kind of invisible where people don't see you. Worse, the kind where they look right through you to someone more interesting standing behind you. My father built Reed Properties from nothing. Started with one rental house, turned it into a regional real estate empire worth $40 million. Everyone in our city knows the Reed name. My brother Liam was groomed from birth to take over. Private schools, business camps, shadowing Dad at work since he was 16. Me, I was the creative one, the soft one, the daughter who liked art and poetry and didn't have the killer instinct. At least that's what Dad always said. I believed him for a long time. Believed I wasn't built for his world of deals and negotiations and brutal competition. But that night at dinner, something snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just a quiet break deep inside, where I'd been holding myself together with hope and denial. Charles Reed was a force. That's what people called him. A self-made man with old-school values and zero tolerance for weakness. He walked into rooms like he owned them because usually he did. His company occupied 3 floors downtown. Glass and steel and mahogany furniture that cost more than most people's cars. I worked there, junior marketing coordinator. The job my father gave me because the family should work together, he said, but I was invisible there too. I'd present ideas in meetings and watch them get ignored. Then Liam would repeat the same concept 10 minutes later, and suddenly it was brilliant. Dad would beam at him, talking about natural leadership. I'd sit there taking notes nobody would read. One Thursday, I suggested a social media campaign targeting young professionals. Dad barely looked up. 2 weeks later, Liam pitched the exact same thing. Dad approved it immediately, gave him a bonus, and told everyone how impressed he was with his innovative thinking. I didn't say a word. I just smiled and congratulated my brother. The quarterly meeting happened on a Tuesday. Dad stood at the head of the conference table going through performance reviews. When he got to me, his tone changed, got colder. "Harper's work has been adequate," he said, like adequate was an insult. "But in this business, adequate doesn't cut it. You need an edge, hunger. Some people just aren't built for success." The words hung in the air. 20 employees stared at their laptops, suddenly very busy. Liam looked at me with something like pity. Or maybe satisfaction. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. I sat perfectly still, face neutral, hands folded in my lap. Inside, I was burning. That night, I drafted my resignation email. Professional, polite. No explanation beyond pursuing other opportunities. I sent it at 11 p.m. Dad didn't reply. But at midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from Liam. 3 words that would haunt him later. "You'll come crawling back." I turned off my phone and started packing my desk supplies. My garage became my office. One folding table from a yard sale. My old college laptop took 5 minutes to boot up, a rolling chair with a broken wheel. I started Harper Reed Consulting. My mission was simple. Help small real estate investors modernize their operations. Most of them were using methods from 20 years ago. I could help them compete with the big companies. Companies like my father's. I had no capital, no investors, no support system. Just rage turned into fuel. I found the sticky note Dad had left on my desk months ago. One of his motivational messages he'd write to himself. This one said, "Some people just aren't built for success," with a smiley face. He probably meant it for himself as a reminder of who to avoid. I stuck it to my garage wall where I could see it every day. That little yellow square became my rallying cry. The rejections came fast. I cold called potential clients from a list I built myself, researched small investors online, found their numbers, and practiced my pitch until it was perfect. Most didn't call back. The ones who answered usually said no within 30 seconds. Banks laughed when I applied for business loans. A 26-year-old woman with no track record and no collateral. Friends started avoiding my calls. They'd been supportive at first, but 3 months in, people get tired of your struggle. Late nights blurred together. I survived on ramen noodles and black coffee. My apartment was cheap and cold. Sometimes I'd sit in my car in the garage, engine off, wondering if Dad was right, if I really wasn't built for this. Then I'd look at that sticky note and get angry all over again. Anger was better than doubt. Anger kept me making calls. Month 4 brought my first yes. A developer named Marcus Chen agreed to meet me. He owned 12 rental properties and was drowning in paperwork. His property management system was a nightmare of spreadsheets and paper files. I spent 2 weeks building him a custom solution. Automated rent collection, digital maintenance requests, tenant screening integrated with online applications. It saved him 20 hours a week. Marcus was so impressed he doubled my fee and introduced me to 3 other investors. Suddenly I had clients. Real clients paying real money. I worked 16-hour days because I couldn't afford to mess this up. Each success built my confidence. Each thank you email from a satisfied client proved Dad wrong. My garage started feeling less like a prison and more like a war room. I was building something, small but real, and it was all mine. 6 months later, my cousin's wedding became a minefield. I almost didn't go, but family obligation won. I wore my best dress, the one I'd bought for job interviews back when I thought I'd work somewhere prestigious. Liam found me by the bar. He looked successful. Expensive suit, gold watch, hair styled like he'd walked out of a magazine. "Harper," he said, voice dripping with false warmth. "Still playing business in your garage?" I smiled, didn't correct him that I'd upgraded to a small office space. "Something like that." He laughed loud enough for nearby relatives to hear. "That's cute. Dad said you'd figure out real work eventually. When you're ready to stop pretending, we've got an admin position open." He walked away before I could respond. My face stayed calm. Inside, I was memorizing every word, every dismissive laugh, every assumption that I was failing. That moment became rocket fuel. Elias Monroe's name came up during a networking event. Someone mentioned he was the investor who'd built and sold 3 companies before turning to mentoring. He was famous for finding overlooked talent and turning them into market disruptors. I researched everything about him, his investment philosophy, his past partnerships, his reputation for brutal honesty. Then I did something crazy. I sent him a cold email. I expected nothing, but 3 days later he replied. "Interesting approach, let's talk." We met at a downtown coffee shop. He was 60, silver-haired, with eyes that seemed to calculate your worth in seconds. I pitched him on my vision. Small investors were underserved. Big companies ignored them. There was a massive market gap. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "You're green, unproven, probably going to fail." Then he smiled. "But I like your anger. Angry people work harder. Let's see what you can do." Elias didn't offer money or partnerships. He offered something better, a challenge. "Bring me 3 high-performing clients in 90 days, not just any clients. I want investors managing at least 5 properties each, all showing measurable improvement in revenue or efficiency. Do that and we'll talk about working together." The stakes felt enormous. This was my shot, my one chance to prove I belonged in this world. I said yes immediately. Spent that night planning. I needed a strategy. Couldn't just rely on luck anymore. I built a database of potential clients, scored them by size, location, and likelihood to need help. Then I created 3 different service packages, each designed for specific investor profiles. The 90-day countdown started. I worked like someone possessed, because I was possessed by the need to prove everyone wrong. Day 65 brought disaster. 2 of my 3 target clients backed out. One sold his properties. The other hired his nephew instead. I sat in my car outside a grocery store, hands gripping the steering wheel while rain pounded the roof. Everything felt impossible. The pressure crushed down on me. I couldn't breathe right. My chest hurts. Panic attack, I realized distantly. I'd never had one before. For 10 minutes, I just sat there, rain and tears mixing together while I tried to remember how to breathe. Finally, the storm in my chest calmed. I wiped my face with fast food napkins from the glove box. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. My eyes were red and my mascara was ruined, but something in my expression was different. Harder. You're not failing, I whispered to my reflection. You're evolving. I started the car and drove to my office. I still had 25 days. Wasn't over yet. The email came from an address I didn't recognize. Subject line, "We should talk." Inside was a message from Jennifer Park, a former assistant at Reed Properties. She'd left 6 months ago after Liam took credit for her work one too many times. "I heard what you're doing," she wrote. "I want to help." We met the next day. Jennifer brought a gift, information. She had spreadsheets showing which clients were unhappy with Reed Properties. She had market analysis Dad's team had compiled. All legally obtained during her employment, nothing stolen, but strategically invaluable. "Your father and brother are bullies," she said simply. "I spent 3 years watching them crush people. When I heard Charles Reed's daughter was competing against him, I knew I wanted in." Jennifer became my secret weapon. She understood Dad's business model inside and out, knew his weaknesses, his blind spots. Together, we identified targets, investors who were underserved by the big companies, people who'd appreciate personal attention and innovative solutions. Day 89. I had 3 clients lined up. Marcus Chen still counted. The other 2 were investors Jennifer helped me find. Both were frustrated with impersonal service from bigger companies. I'd spent 3 weeks proving my worth. Custom solutions, personal attention, results-driven strategies, all 3 showed measurable improvement, increased revenue, reduced costs, better tenant satisfaction. I called Elias. My hands shook as I dialed. "Challenge met," I said when he answered. Silence on the other end, then a low chuckle. "Send me the data." I sent everything. Metrics, testimonials, financial projections. An hour later, my phone rang. "Most people fail this test," Elias said. "Not because they're not smart, because they give up when it gets hard. You didn't. That tells me what I need to know. Let's build something bigger, Harper." I sat in my office after the call ended. Didn't celebrate, just breathed. 1 milestone down, 1,000 more ahead. Monroe and Reed Strategies became official 6 weeks later. Elias handled the legal paperwork and initial investment. I brought the operations and vision. We agreed on a 60-40 ownership split. He was 60 because he was funding everything. I'm 40 because I was building everything. I hesitated about using my last name. Reed was my father's legacy. Did I want to attach myself to it? Elias noticed my hesitation. "What's the problem?" I explained about my family. About Dad's company, about feeling like I was stealing his identity. Elias shook his head. "You're not stealing anything, you're reclaiming it. Reed is your name too, make it stand for something different, something better." So Monroe and Reed Strategies was born. We set up office space downtown. Nothing fancy but professional, hired 2 employees. Jennifer came on as operations manager, started actively marketing our services. Within 3 months, we had 18 clients. By month 6, 32. Revenue climbed steadily. My garage days felt like a distant memory. The whispers started around month 8. Real estate is a small world in our city. Everyone knows everyone. People talk. Dad started hearing about a new competitor called Reed Strategies. At first, he didn't pay attention. Reed's a common enough name. Then someone mentioned Monroe was involved. That got his attention. Elias Monroe was a legend. If he was backing a new firm, it meant something. Dad asked around. Who was this Reed person? A younger investor, people said. Someone with fresh ideas. Good with technology. Dad apparently assumed it was a distant relative, maybe a cousin using the family name. He told Liam to keep an eye on this new company. Liam, predictably, forgot immediately, too busy taking credit for other people's work. Meanwhile, I kept my head down and kept building. Let them wonder. Let them underestimate. I'd learned that lesson well. Invisibility could be a weapon. The Regional Real Estate Expo happens every spring. Biggest industry event in our area. Everyone who mattered attended. I'd gone as Dad's employee before, carrying his briefcase and taking notes. This year, I walked in beside Elias Monroe, equal partners. We had a booth showcasing our services, professional banners, marketing materials, a tablet showing our client success stories. I wore a navy suit that made me look older, more established. Hair pulled back, minimal makeup, all business. That's when I saw Liam. He was across the exhibition hall, schmoozing with potential clients. Then he turned. Our eyes met. I watched recognition flicker across his face. Confusion, then shock, then something like fear. He said something to the client he'd been talking to and started walking toward our booth. But he stopped halfway. Just stood there staring while Elias and I shook hands with an investor who just signed a contract. Liam pulled out his phone. I knew exactly who he was calling. Dad called that evening. I was at dinner with Elias and Jennifer celebrating 3 new contracts. My phone buzzed. Charles Reed lit up the screen. I hadn't spoken to him in over a year. "Excuse me," I said to my team, stepped outside the restaurant. "Hello, Dad." His voice was tight, controlled anger. "What game are you playing, Harper?" I leaned against the brick wall, looking up at the darkening sky. "No game, Dad, just business." "Don't play innocent, Monroe and Reed." "You're using our family name to compete with me." "It's my name too. Last time I checked, I'm still a Reed." He tried a different approach, belittling his favorite weapon. "Elias is using you. He's got some grudges against me, so he's propping up my daughter's failure to make a point." That old insult would have destroyed me a year ago. Now it just bounced off. "If you really believe I'm a failure, why are you worried?" I said softly. Then I hung up, didn't wait for his response. I turned off my phone and went back inside. Elias looked at me questioningly. I smiled. "Everything's fine. Now where were we?" The Riverside property chain had been on the market for months, 12 commercial properties across the city. Dad had tried to acquire them 2 years ago, but the deal fell through. Bad timing, insufficient financing, something. He'd been bitter about it ever since. Elias brought the opportunity to me. "This is big," he warned. "We'd need to leverage everything. If it goes wrong, we're done." I studied the numbers for 3 days straight, ran projections, analyzed market trends. Talked to our contacts about potential tenants. Finally, I looked at Elias. "We can make this work, but we need to move fast." We structured a deal that was aggressive but smart, brought in 2 other investors to share risk, presented an offer the sellers couldn't refuse. 3 weeks later, the properties were ours. The local business journal ran a story. "Monroe and Reed Strategies acquires Riverside chain in major deal." The article mentioned me by name, called me a rising strategist, praised our innovative financing approach. Dad's phone probably rang off the hook that day. Investors are questioning why Reed Properties didn't make this happen, wondering if Charles Reed was losing his edge. Liam's fall came from his own arrogance. Reed Properties had a major client, Thompson Development. They'd worked with Dad for 15 years, worth millions in annual revenue. Liam was handling the relationship now. Dad wanted to give him more responsibility to prove he was ready to take over someday. Thompson Development needed help restructuring a troubled residential project. Liam promised them a solution, didn't consult with his team, didn't do proper research. Just threw together a plan based on what he thought sounded good. The plan failed spectacularly, cost Thompson Development $3 million. They fired Reed Properties immediately, threatened legal action. The story spread through the industry like wildfire. Liam tried to blame his team, but everyone knew the truth. The Golden Sun had screwed up, badly. I heard about it through Jennifer, who still had friends at Dad's company. I didn't gloat, didn't celebrate. I just felt a strange, quiet satisfaction. The universe is balancing itself out. Karma is doing its work without any help from me. The email from Dad's assistant arrived on a Wednesday. "Mr. Reed would like to schedule a private meeting with you. He suggests this Saturday at 2 p.m. at his office. He wishes to discuss family unity and potential areas of mutual benefit." I read it 3 times. Dad never apologized, never admit mistakes. But this felt like something close, or maybe it was a trap, some new way to undermine me. I forwarded the email to Elias. He called immediately. "Are you going?" "I'm curious," I admitted. "What does he want after all this time? Could be genuine, could be a strategy. Charles is a survivor. He sees you succeeding and wants to figure out how to control it." I thought about it. "I'll go, but I want you there with me." Silence on Elias' end, then a slow exhale. "Are you sure about that?" "Completely sure. If this is about family unity, he should know exactly who I'm unified with now." Saturday couldn't come fast enough. I wanted to see Dad's face. I wanted to watch him process everything he'd missed while he was underestimating me. Saturday afternoon felt surreal. I walked into Reed Properties for the first time in over a year. The receptionist didn't recognize me at first. Then her eyes went wide. "Ms. Reed, Mr. Reed is expecting you in the conference room." I nodded. Elias walked beside me, silent and observing. We reached the conference room. Dad was already there, standing by the window. He turned when we entered. I started to smile. Then he saw Elias. The smile froze, color drained from his face. "Elias," Dad said slowly, like he was seeing a ghost. Elias settled into a chair, completely relaxed. "Funny seeing you again, Charles." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. I looked between them, understanding dawn. "You two know each other." Oh, we go way back, Elias said pleasantly. 23 years, Charles and I were partners once, until he betrayed me, stole a client list, and cost me everything I'd built. It took me 5 years to recover. Dad's jaw clenched. That's ancient history. Maybe, Elias agreed. But history has a funny way of repeating itself, except this time I found a better partner. Dad's composure shattered. All that controlled businessman persona evaporated. You did this to get back at me, he said to Elias. Used my daughter as revenge. I didn't use anyone, Elias replied calmly. Harper came to me. She earned everything she's built. I just gave her the opportunity you refused to. Dad turned to me. His face was red. Veins stood out on his forehead. You're destroying this family, everything I built. You're tearing it down out of spite because you couldn't handle not being good enough. Something inside me snapped. Not the quiet break from a year ago. This was louder, cleaner. No, Dad, I said, standing up. My voice was steady, clear. You destroyed this family when you taught us that only power matters. When you chose Liam over me 1,000 times. When you made me feel worthless for not being like you. I was preparing him to lead, Dad shouted. Someone has to run the company. And someone does run a company, I shot back. Me, I built something from nothing while you were praising your golden boy for repeating my ideas. So no, I'm not destroying anything. I'm just existing, successfully, and you can't stand it. Dad stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Then he grabbed his briefcase and stormed out, slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I stood there, breathing hard, feeling lighter than I had in years. Scandal broke 2 weeks later. Reed Properties was under investigation. Financial mismanagement, improper accounting, nothing criminal but sloppy enough to violate regulations. The investigation focused on Liam's projects. His poor decisions had created documentation problems. Contractors paid incorrectly. Permits filed wrong. Small mistakes that added up to a compliance nightmare. The local business community watched Dad's company stumble. Clients started leaving. Some came to us. They'd heard we were more organized, more innovative, more careful with details. I didn't have to badmouth Dad. His own mistakes spoke loudly enough. Jennifer fielded calls from reporters. We gave careful, professional responses. No comment on family matters. Yes, Monroe and Reed Strategies were accepting new clients. Yes, we believed in ethical, transparent business practices. The subtext was clear. 3 of Dad's longtime employees quietly reached out about jobs. Said working for Charles Reed had become unbearable. The Golden Empire was tarnishing, and I hadn't thrown a single stone, just built my own castle while he crumbled. Monroe and Reed Strategies expanded to 3 cities within 18 months. We hired 42 employees. Most of them were people like me, overlooked, underestimated. Given a chance, they became stars. Jennifer ran operations like a master conductor. Elias focused on big-picture strategy and investor relations. I handled client relationships and company vision. We were written up in regional business magazines. I did 3 interviews. Each time, they asked about my father. Kept my answers professional. Charles Reed built an impressive company. I learned a lot watching him, but Monroe and Reed represent a different philosophy. We believe in collaboration over competition, innovation over tradition. We believe everyone deserves a seat at the table. The articles were kind, called me a fresh voice in real estate, praised our employee satisfaction ratings. One magazine put my photo on the cover. The tagline read, "Redefining the family name." I bought 5 copies. Sent one to my mother. She called crying, said she was proud, said she was sorry she never stood up for me. It was something, not everything, but something. The invitation came 6 months later. Handwritten, my mother's careful script. Family dinner small, just us, please come. I almost said no, but curiosity won. I arrived at my parents' house on a Sunday evening, the same dining room where this all started, but everything felt smaller now, older. Dad sat at the head of the table. He looked older too, gray at his temples, lines around his eyes I didn't remember. Liam was there, barely making eye contact. Mom served roast chicken. We ate in awkward silence for 10 minutes, then Dad cleared his throat. Your mother tells me your company is doing well. It is, I said simply, more silence. He pushed food around his plate. Finally, he looked up, met my eyes. I was wrong about you. 4 words, quiet, maybe the hardest thing he'd ever said. I set down my fork, studied his face, saw something there I'd never seen before, regret maybe, or just age catching up to pride. I smiled, not cruel, not triumphant, just gentle. No, Dad, you weren't wrong about me. You were just looking in the wrong direction. I stood up, grabbed my coat. Thanks for dinner, Mom. I walked out into the cool evening air, got in my car, sat there for a moment, hands on the steering wheel. But this time I wasn't shaking, wasn't crying, wasn't falling apart. I was free from needing his approval, free from proving anything to anyone but myself. I started the car and drove toward my real life. The one I'd built from nothing but determination and spite and quiet, burning anger. The life where Harper Reed wasn't the overlooked daughter anymore, just Harper Reed. Successful, strong, finally completely myself.